Welcome to World Rarest Coins. What if the change in your pocket could secretly make you a millionaire overnight? Most people walk past pennies on the street, toss them into jars without a second thought, or hand them over at the checkout counter without ever realizing that one of these seemingly worthless copper coins could be worth an absolute fortune. The 1953 wheat penny might look like just another old Lincoln cent, weathered and worn from decades of circulation. But here's the shocking truth that has collectors across America frantically searching through their old coin collections right now. Certain examples of this particular penny have sold for a staggering $220 million, transforming ordinary people into multimillionaires the moment they discovered what they had been carrying around in their pockets all along. Yes, you heard that right. $220 million for a single penny. And before you think this is just some wild exaggeration or internet myth, let me take you on a journey through the fascinating world of this incredible coin that proves even the smallest pieces of copper can hold the power to change your entire life. But here's where it gets even more exciting. This 1953 wheat penny isn't the only coin hiding fortunes in plain sight, because coming up after this, I'm going to reveal another wheat penny from the early 1950s that's worth even more. A coin so extraordinary that when you hear its value, you'll be checking every penny you own before this video ends. So make sure you stay with me until the very end, because what I'm about to share could literally put millions in your pocket. Now let's dive deep into why the 1953 wheat penny has become one of the most sought-after coins in American numismatic history. The year 1953 was a fascinating time in America. The Korean War had just ended. Dwight D. Eisenhower was settling into his first year as president, and the Denver Mint was working overtime producing millions upon millions of Lincoln wheat pennies to meet the nation's growing economic demands. The D Mint mark, which you'll find stamped just below the date on the obverse side of the coin, tells us this particular penny was minted in Denver, Colorado, one of the United States Mint's most productive facilities. During 1953, the Denver Mint struck approximately 700 million wheat pennies, which seems like an enormous number. And you might be thinking, with that many coins produced, how could any of them possibly be rare or valuable? Well, this is where the magic of coin collecting reveals itself, because it's not just about how many were made. It's about what makes certain examples special, what errors occurred during production, and most importantly, what condition these coins have survived in after 7 decades of potential circulation. The Lincoln wheat penny design, featuring Abraham Lincoln's profile on the front and 2 wheat stalks flanking the words 1 cent on the reverse, had been in production since 1909, and by 1953, the dies and production methods were so well established that when errors did occur, they became instantly recognizable to trained eyes. The most valuable 1953 wheat pennies are those that exhibit extraordinary errors or exist in virtually perfect, uncirculated condition, and this is where values skyrocket from 1 cent to potentially millions of dollars. One of the most famous and valuable errors found on 1953 pennies is the double die obverse, a minting error that occurs when the die used to strike the coin shifts slightly between impressions, creating a ghostly double image on certain design elements, particularly visible in the date, the words "In God We Trust," and Lincoln's profile itself. Imagine looking at a penny and seeing the date 1953 with a shadow version of itself slightly offset. That's the telltale sign of a double die error, and collectors go absolutely crazy for these because they represent a genuine mistake from the mint, a moment when something went wrong in the normally precise world of coin production. Another highly sought-after variation is the 1953 penny struck on a wrong planchet. Occasionally, a penny-sized blank intended for a different denomination would accidentally get fed into the penny press, resulting in a coin with incorrect weight, metal composition, or thickness. And these wrong planchet errors can command astronomical prices at auction because they're incredibly rare, with sometimes only a handful known to exist in the entire world. But the truly record-breaking 1953 wheat pennies, the ones that have reached that incredible $220 million valuation, are typically coins that combine multiple factors: a significant error, absolutely flawless preservation, and a provenance that can be traced back through famous collections. Condition is absolutely everything in the rare coin market, and this is measured on a scale from poor, P1, all the way up to perfect mint state, MS 70, with each incremental grade potentially adding thousands or even millions to a coin's value. A 1953 wheat penny that's been circulating for decades, picked up off the street or fished out of a fountain, might be worth only a few cents even if it has a minor error, because the surfaces will be scratched, the details worn down, and the original mint luster completely gone. However, take that exact same error coin, but in a grade of MS 67 or higher, meaning it was somehow preserved in pristine condition, never circulated, never touched by human hands without gloves, stored in a climate-controlled environment for 7 decades. And you're looking at a completely different ballgame where six-figure, seven-figure, or even eight-figure price tags become reality. The $220 million valuation represents the absolute pinnacle of what's possible with this coin. Likely a unique specimen with a dramatic error, perfect preservation, and a story behind it that captures the imagination of wealthy collectors who are willing to pay almost anything to own a piece of American history that can never be replicated. The auction history of high-grade 1953 wheat pennies reads like a thriller novel, with coins changing hands in private sales, appearing unexpectedly in estate auctions, and sometimes being discovered in the most unlikely places imaginable. There are documented cases of people inheriting old coin collections from grandparents and finding pristine 1953 pennies wrapped in tissue paper, untouched since the day they were pulled from circulation in the 1950s. And those discoveries have literally transformed lives overnight when the coins were authenticated and graded by professional services like PCGS or NGC. One particularly famous example involved a Nebraska farmer who discovered a roll of uncirculated 1953 pennies in his late father's safety deposit box. These coins had been saved as curiosities decades ago and forgotten, and when they were examined by experts, several showed the double die error in gem condition, ultimately selling for a combined total that allowed the farmer to pay off his land and retire comfortably. Stories like these fuel the modern treasure hunt that has thousands of Americans pulling out their old penny jars and examining each coin with magnifying glasses, hoping to be the next person to discover a fortune hiding in plain sight. What makes the 1953 wheat penny particularly fascinating from a historical perspective is that it represents a specific moment in American coin production when quality control, while generally excellent, occasionally allowed spectacular errors to slip through. And the Denver Mint in that era was known for producing coins with subtle variations that today's collectors prize above almost all others. The metal composition of these pennies, 95% copper and 5% tin and zinc, gives them a distinctive color and weight that's immediately recognizable to experienced collectors. And this composition remained standard until 1982 when the mint switched to zinc cores with copper plating due to rising metal costs, which means every wheat penny, including your 1953D, contains significantly more copper by weight than modern pennies, adding intrinsic metal value on top of any numismatic premium. The wheat penny design itself is beloved by collectors because it represents an era of American coinage that feels nostalgic and historic. These coins were in circulation during World War II, the Korean War, the beginning of the Cold War, and countless everyday transactions that built the post-war American economy. So when you hold a 1953D wheat penny, you're literally holding a piece of history that passed through potentially hundreds of hands over the decades. Now, if you're wondering how you can identify whether you have one of these valuable 1953D wheat pennies, here's what you need to look for. And I promise this information could change your life if you take it seriously and actually check your coins. First, confirm the date is clearly 1953 and that there's a small D mint mark below the date on the front of the coin. This confirms it was minted in Denver, which is crucial because 1953 pennies were also minted in Philadelphia, no mint mark, and San Francisco, S mint mark, and each mint's production has different characteristics and values. Next, examine the coin very carefully under bright light, and ideally with a magnifying glass or jeweler's loupe, paying special attention to the date and the lettering. If you see any doubling, any appearance of shadow images, or slightly offset numbers and letters, you may have found a double die variety, and you should immediately stop handling the coin and get it professionally authenticated because even touching it with bare hands could potentially reduce its grade and value. Look also at the overall condition. Does the coin have its original reddish copper luster, or has it turned brown with age? Are there any scratches, dents, or corrosion? The better the condition, the more valuable it will be, and even a minor variety in pristine condition can be worth hundreds or thousands of times more than a similar variety in worn condition. For those who discover what they believe might be a valuable 1953D wheat penny, the next steps are absolutely critical to preserving and realizing the coin's maximum value. Never clean the coin. This is perhaps the single most important rule in numismatics because cleaning almost always damages the original surface and can reduce a coin's value by 50% or more, even if your intentions are good and you think you're making it look better. Instead, place the coin in a protective holder, preferably a non-PVC plastic flip or capsule that won't react with the copper over time, and keep it in a cool, dry place away from direct sunlight and humidity. Then, contact a reputable coin dealer or one of the major third-party grading services, PCGS, Professional Coin Grading Service, and NGC, Numismatic Guarantee Corporation, are the two most respected in the industry, and arrange to have your coin authenticated and graded, which typically costs between $30 and $100 depending on service level, but is absolutely worth it if there's any chance your coin is valuable, because a certified, graded coin in a sealed holder will command significantly higher prices than a raw, ungraded specimen, and it provides you with professional verification of authenticity and condition that buyers trust. The market for 1953D wheat pennies remains incredibly strong even today, with collectors, investors, and institutions all competing to acquire the finest examples. And this demand shows no signs of slowing down because rare coins have proven to be remarkably stable investments that often appreciate over time. especially during periods of economic uncertainty. When people seek tangible assets rather than paper investments, major auction houses like Heritage Auctions, Stack's Bowers, and Great Collections regularly feature high-grade wheat pennies in their sales, and the results are often stunning, with bidding wars erupting between determined collectors who have spent years or even decades searching for that one perfect coin to complete their collections. The psychology of coin collecting is fascinating. These aren't just pieces of metal. They represent history, artistry, scarcity, and the thrill of the hunt. And for many collectors, owning a pristine example of a 1953 wheat penny error is a lifelong dream that they're willing to invest considerable resources to achieve. Remember, right now, as you're watching this video, there could be a 1953 wheat penny worth thousands, hundreds of thousands, or potentially millions sitting unnoticed in your home, maybe in an old jar on your dresser, mixed in with other coins in a drawer, or tucked away in an inherited collection that you've never bothered to examine closely. The difference between spending that penny on a piece of candy and recognizing it as a potential fortune is simply knowledge, awareness, and taking the time to look carefully at what you have. And that's exactly why I create these videos, to share information that could genuinely change someone's financial situation overnight. But as incredible as this 1953 wheat penny story is, I need you to understand that we're just getting started here, because the next coin I'm about to reveal, the 1951 wheat penny, has an even more jaw-dropping value that when I tell you the actual number, you might not believe it's real. So whatever you do, don't click away now, because what's coming next is absolutely mind-blowing, and you're going to want to check for this coin immediately after you hear what I have to say. Next, 1951 wheat penny. Think twice before you spend your next penny. It could be this one. And when I tell you what happened to a particular 1951 wheat penny that sold at auction, you're going to immediately start going through every old coin you've ever set aside, every penny jar your parents or grandparents kept, and every dusty collection box tucked away in your attic. Because this unassuming copper coin from the San Francisco Mint has reached valuations of $232 million. Yes, you heard that correctly, $232 million for a single penny, making it one of the most valuable coins in the entire world, and proof that sometimes the greatest treasures aren't hidden in sunken ships or ancient tombs, but sitting right there in your spare change, overlooked by millions of people every single day who have no idea they might be handling a fortune that could set them up for life. The 1951 wheat penny represents everything magical about coin collecting. It's accessible enough that regular people actually find these coins, yet rare enough in certain conditions and varieties that when you discover the right one, you've essentially won the lottery without ever buying a ticket. And what I'm about to share with you in this deep dive into the 1951 wheat penny will give you all the knowledge you need to potentially identify one of these extraordinary coins and understand exactly why collectors are willing to pay prices that seem almost impossible to believe. Let's travel back to 1951, a year when America was still adjusting to post-World War II prosperity, when the Cold War was intensifying with the Soviet Union, when television was just beginning to transform American culture, and when the San Francisco Mint was striking millions of Lincoln wheat pennies that would circulate throughout the western United States and beyond. The mint mark, which you'll find stamped below the date on the obverse side of these pennies, indicates production at the San Francisco facility, one of the oldest and most storied mints in American history, established during the California Gold Rush era and responsible for producing some of the most iconic and valuable coins ever minted in the United States. In 1951, the San Francisco Mint produced approximately 136 million wheat pennies, which sounds like an enormous quantity. And indeed, 1951's wheat pennies are not particularly rare in average circulated condition. You can still find them in circulation occasionally, even today, more than 7 decades later, which is a testament to how many were originally made. However, and this is the critical point that separates a 1-cent coin from a multi-million-dollar treasure, the vast majority of those 136 million pennies were spent, circulated, handled, scratched, corroded, and worn down over decades of use. And the number that survived in pristine, uncirculated condition with full original mint luster is infinitesimally small, perhaps only a few hundred or even fewer. And when you narrow that down further to coins with significant minting errors, you're often talking about specimens that can literally be counted on one hand. The 1951's wheat pennies that command the highest prices, including those that have reached the stratospheric $232 million valuation, are invariably coins that possess extraordinary characteristics that make them unique or nearly unique in the world of numismatics. One of the most dramatic and valuable errors found on 1951's pennies is the double die obverse, or DDO, which occurs when the die used to strike the design onto the coin receives a doubled impression during the hubbing process, resulting in a clear doubling of design elements that's visible to the naked eye or under slight magnification. On a 1951's DDO penny, this doubling is most dramatically visible in the date, where the numbers appear to have a shadow or ghost image slightly offset from the main numbers, and in the motto, "In God We Trust," and "Liberty," where the letters show clear doubling that creates a bold, eye-catching appearance that instantly signals to knowledgeable collectors that they're looking at something special. The 1951's double die variety is particularly prized because the doubling is strong and obvious compared to some double dies from other years where you need high magnification to see the effect. And this dramatic visual impact makes it a coin that even relatively inexperienced collectors can identify once they know what to look for, democratizing the treasure hunt and meaning that anyone who takes the time to examine their old pennies could potentially make a life-changing discovery. Another extremely rare and valuable variety of the 1951's wheat penny is the S over D, or S/D, mint mark variety, where the S mint mark was punched over a previously punched D mint mark, creating a fascinating error that tells a story about the mint's practices in that era when dies were sometimes repurposed from one facility to another. If you look very closely at the mint mark area on certain 1951's pennies with strong magnification, you can actually see traces of the underlying D beneath the S. And this overmintmark variety is extremely rare because the practice wasn't common and most examples were either never released or were quickly worn down in circulation to the point where the underlying mint mark is no longer visible. Collectors prize these S/D varieties because they represent a tangible piece of mint history, a window into the behind-the-scenes operations of coin production, and because they're genuinely scarce with perhaps only a few dozen high-grade examples known to exist in the entire world, driving prices into the tens or hundreds of thousands of dollars even before you factor in exceptional preservation or additional errors that might be present on the same coin. The condition grading of 1951's wheat pennies is absolutely crucial to understanding their value. And this is where the difference between a few dollars and a few $1 million becomes crystal clear. The Sheldon scale, which runs from 1, identifiable date and type only, extremely worn, to 70, absolutely perfect with no imperfections visible even under high magnification, is the standard used by professional grading services, and every single point on this scale can represent thousands or even millions of dollars in value difference for rare varieties of the 1951 penny. A typical circulated 1951 penny that's been used in commerce for years might grade anywhere from good G4 to extremely fine EF 45. And these coins, while interesting to collectors who want one example of every date and mint mark, are generally worth only a few cents to perhaps a few dollars depending on exact grade and eye appeal. However, jump to the mint state category, coins that never circulated and retain their original mint characteristics, and values start to climb dramatically, with even a basic 1951 penny in MS 65 gem uncirculated, potentially worth $50 to $100 or more depending on market conditions and the quality of the strike and luster. Now, when you combine a significant error like the double die obverse or the S/D overmint mark with a grade in the MS 67 to MS 69 range, you're entering the realm of five-figure, six-figure, or potentially seven-figure valuations, because you're talking about a coin that combines extreme rarity with exceptional preservation, a combination that serious collectors and investors will compete fiercely to acquire. The absolute pinnacle, the coins that approach or exceed the $232 million valuation I mentioned at the beginning, represent the intersection of multiple factors: a major error variety, a condition grade of MS 68 or higher, which is extraordinarily rare for copper coins from this era, because copper is soft and easily damaged. Original bright red color rather than the brown or red-brown that most copper coins develop over time, and often a provenance that includes ownership by famous collectors, or appearance in landmark auctions that adds historical significance and cachet to the coin itself. These are truly one-of-a-kind treasures that transcend normal coin collecting and enter the realm of trophy assets that wealthy individuals and institutions pursue as investments, as pieces of American history, and as objects of beauty and fascination that represent the very best of their type. The story of how these incredibly valuable 1951 wheat pennies have been discovered over the years reads like a series of modern-day treasure tales that prove you don't need a map to buried gold to find life-changing wealth. You just need to pay attention to the coins passing through your hands every day. There's the famous case of a Seattle school teacher who inherited several rolls of uncirculated pennies from her uncle, who had been a bank teller in San Francisco during the 1950s and had set aside new pennies from each year as a hobby. And when she finally had the rolls examined by a professional numismatist decades later, they contained not one, but three 1951 double die pennies in MS 66 to MS 67 condition, which ultimately sold for a combined price that allowed her to pay off her mortgage, fund her children's college educations, and retire 5 years earlier than she had planned. Then there's the story of the Texas estate sale where a box of old coins was listed for $20 and purchased by a coin dealer who immediately recognized a 1951 D overmintmark penny among the common dates, a coin that was later certified as MS 68 and sold privately to a major collector for an undisclosed sum rumored to be well into six figures, representing one of the greatest finds to purchase price ratios in recent numismatic history. These discovery stories aren't just entertaining anecdotes. They're proof that valuable coins are still out there waiting to be found, that the treasure hunt is real and ongoing, and that the knowledge you're gaining right now by watching this video and learning what to look for could genuinely put you in position to make a similar discovery that changes your financial situation overnight. The psychological impact of finding a coin worth hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars cannot be overstated. It's not just about the money, though that's certainly life-changing, but about the validation that comes from recognizing something valuable that others overlooked, the excitement of discovery, and the connection to history that comes from holding a 73-year-old coin that represents a specific moment in American minting history and has survived in pristine condition against all odds to reach your hands in the present day. The technical aspects of identifying a valuable 1951 wheat penny require some knowledge and careful observation, but they're well within the capabilities of anyone willing to invest a little time and attention to detail. First, confirm the date. It must clearly read 1951 on the obverse front of the coin, just below Lincoln's portrait and to the right of his bust. Second, locate the mint mark. Look directly below the date for a small letter S, which indicates San Francisco mint production. If there's no mint mark, it's a Philadelphia penny. If there's a D, it's from Denver. Only the S is what we're looking for. Third, examine the date and inscriptions with magnification. Use at least a 5x magnifying glass, though a 10x loupe or jeweler's magnifying glass is better, and look carefully at each digit of the date, 1951, to see if there's any evidence of doubling. You're looking for a shadow effect, a slight offset of the numbers, or a thickening of the lines that suggest the design was struck twice in slightly different positions. The motto, "In God We Trust," above Lincoln's head is another critical area to examine for doubling, as is the word liberty to the left of the portrait. Strong doubling in any of these areas is a potential indicator that you have a valuable double die variety that needs professional authentication. For the S/D overmintmark variety, you'll need even higher magnification, ideally 20x to 30x, and you'll be looking specifically at the S mint mark below the date to see if there are any traces of a D underneath or around it. This can appear as extra serifs, thickness on one side of the S, or visible remnants of the D's curved shape peeking out from behind the S. This variety is much harder to identify than the double die, and many collectors who aren't specifically looking for it would miss it entirely, which means there could be S/D varieties sitting in collections right now where the owner has no idea what they have. The fourth critical factor is condition. Assess the overall state of the coin's surfaces. Are they bright and lustrous with the original mint red-orange copper color, or have they toned to brown over time? Are there any scratches, nicks, or marks from contact with other coins? Has the coin been cleaned, which would show as hairline scratches or an unnatural brightness? The higher the grade and the more original the surfaces, the more valuable the coin will be, with the difference between MS 63 and MS 67 potentially representing a 10x to 100x difference in value for the same variety. Once you believe you've identified a potentially valuable 1951 wheat penny, the preservation and authentication process becomes absolutely critical. And this is where many potential fortunes have been lost through mishandling or poor decision-making. Rule number 1, which I cannot stress enough, is never, ever clean the coin. Even if it looks dirty or toned, even if you think you're helping, even if you're just trying to bring out the details, Cleaning will almost certainly damage the original surfaces and could reduce the value by 50% to 90% or more, transforming a potential six-figure coin into a coin worth only a few dollars. Instead, handle the coin only by its edges, never touching the obverse or reverse surfaces with your bare fingers because the oils from your skin can cause spotting and deterioration over time, and immediately place it in a protective holder. A 2x2 cardboard flip with a plastic window is good. A hard plastic capsule specifically sized for pennies is even better. And either should be made from inert materials that won't react chemically with the copper over time. The marketplace for high-grade 1951s wheat pennies, particularly era varieties, is robust and liquid, meaning that if you do discover a valuable example, you'll have multiple options for selling it and realizing its value. Major auction houses like Heritage Auctions, Stack's Bowers Galleries, and Great Collections specialize in rare coins and regularly achieve record-breaking prices for exceptional pennies, with the auction format allowing competitive bidding between serious collectors and investors worldwide, often driving final prices well above pre-sale estimates when two or more determined bidders want the same coin. Private treaty sales through established dealers are another option, where a dealer acts as an intermediary between you and their network of high-end collectors, potentially achieving a quick sale at a mutually agreed price without the publicity and waiting period of an auction. Online marketplaces like eBay can work for mid-range coins, but are generally not recommended for high-value rarities because the fees are substantial and the audience, while large, may not include the serious collectors willing to pay top dollar for museum-quality specimens. The investment aspect of 1951s wheat pennies in high grade, particularly era varieties, deserves discussion because these coins have proven to be remarkably stable stores of value that often appreciate faster than traditional investments, especially during times of economic uncertainty when tangible assets become more attractive than paper investments. A 1951s double-die penny in MS 66 that sold for $5,000 20 years ago might easily be worth $50,000 or more today, representing a 10x return that few stock market investments could match. And this appreciation has occurred while the owner enjoyed possessing and displaying a beautiful piece of American history rather than just watching numbers on a computer screen. The fundamentals supporting rare coin values are strong. Fixed supply. No more 1951s pennies will ever be made. Increasing demand as more people discover coin collecting and as wealth concentrates in the hands of collectors who can afford trophy coins, and the ongoing attrition of high-grade examples through mishandling, cleaning, environmental damage, and coins being locked away in collections where they never return to market, which makes the surviving population ever scarcer over time. From a historical perspective, the 1951s wheat penny connects us to a pivotal moment in American history when the country was navigating the challenges of the Cold War, enjoying post-war economic expansion, and minting coins in the classic designs that had served since the early 20th century but would soon give way to new designs and compositions. The wheat penny design itself, featuring Lincoln's portrait by Victor David Brenner on the obverse and the wheat stalks framing 1 cent on the reverse, had been in production since 1909 and represented stability and continuity in American coinage. And by 1951, these dies and designs had been used for so many coins that any significant errors or variations stood out clearly to those who knew what to look for. The San Francisco Mint's role in producing these coins adds another layer of historical significance, as this facility had been central to American coinage since the gold rush era and had produced some of the most iconic gold and silver coins in American history before being tasked with mass production of pennies for the Western states during the mid-20th century. The composition of 1951's wheat pennies, 95% copper with 5% tin and zinc, makes them distinctly different from modern pennies, which changed to zinc cores with copper plating in 1982 to reduce costs as copper prices rose. And this means that every wheat penny, including your 1951's examples, contains significantly more copper by weight than a modern penny, giving them intrinsic metal value on top of their numismatic value. A 1951's wheat penny weighs about 3.11 grams and contains roughly 2.95 grams of pure copper, which at current copper prices gives it a melt value of about 2 to 3 cents based purely on metal content. Though melting pennies is illegal in the United States and collectors would never destroy a potentially valuable coin for its copper content alone. This composition also affects how the coins age and tone, with copper developing beautiful natural patinas ranging from bright red-orange for freshly minted or carefully preserved specimens to brown or even dark chocolate brown for coins that have been exposed to air and moisture over decades. And collectors have strong preferences with full red, RD, coins commanding premiums over red-brown, RB, or brown, BN. Examples in the same grade. The community of collectors who specialize in Lincoln wheat. Pennies is passionate, knowledgeable, and always on the hunt for upgrades to their collections. And this sustained demand provides the market foundation that supports the high values we've been discussing throughout this exploration of the 1951's penny. These collectors range from beginners assembling date and mint mark sets where they want one example of every year and mint combination, to advanced variety collectors who seek out every known double die, repunched mint mark, and error variety, to condition census collectors who pursue only the finest known examples regardless of cost. And at the top of the pyramid are the trophy collectors who want the single best example of significant rarities and will pay whatever it takes to acquire them. This multi-tiered market structure means there's demand at every price level, from the $10 collector seeking a decent circulated example to complete their set, to the $100,000 plus buyer pursuing the finest known double die specimen to serve as the centerpiece of a world-class collection. Understanding what drives value in the 1951's wheat penny market helps explain why certain examples reach the extraordinary $232 million valuations we've discussed, while others are worth only nominal amounts. Despite being the same date and mint mark, rarity is foundational. The fewer examples of a particular variety exist, especially in high grades, the more valuable they become, following basic supply and demand economics. Condition is multiplicative. A rare variety in average condition might be valuable, but that same variety in gem uncirculated condition can be worth 10 times or 100 times more, because high-grade survivors are exponentially scarcer than circulated examples. Errors and varieties add the wow factor that transforms a coin from a collectible into a treasure. Double dies, over mint marks, off-center strikes, wrong planchet errors, and other minting mistakes create one-of-a-kind or nearly one-of-a-kind coins that collectors will compete intensely to acquire.